Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Space for Life. We've had some phenomenal episodes recently, and they all relate to what I call the long game. And the long game, as I'm talking about it, is really talking about thinking about life from a much longer perspective of the person that we want to become and the life we want to have created, not at the end of this year, but a decade from now or 2 or 3 decades from now. And so each one of the episodes, as I think back on it, are talking about not something that's going to help you so much get through the next day or the next week, but episodes that talk about how are you going to become a person that can sustain for the long haul. So we've had some phenomenal episodes you might want to go back and listen to. I had Jim and Nicole Holland on, and we did a deep dive into the whole area of health from the perspective of what you eat and the exercise you do. And they have a phenomenal business, Hope 30, that they talk about. But it's not just a light dive into health. It's a much deeper dive into how can we become fundamentally healthy people so that we can live our best lives. I had Michelle Lair Rahal on here talking about listening to God, kind of one of the fundamental spiritual practices for the long haul. Just a couple weeks ago, I had my wife Wheezy on, and we talked about a practice both of us center in on each day, and that's the art and the joy of journaling. And she described some of the rich practices that she's now engaged in for decades that have helped her. And I think that could help you in terms of the long haul game. I did an episode just 2 weeks ago on getting out of your comfort zone. And while that might seem like just a daily type of practice or something you do every now and then, in my mind, getting out of the comfort zone is a habit that we create. It's a mindset that we create that, again, helps us move in a positive direction on the long haul. Last week had one of the most popular episodes and just one of the favorites that I had recording. My good friend and mentor, Elaine Metcalf, and she talked about seasons of a well-lived life. And that's certainly an episode you don't want to miss out on. And so today's episode is going to be along the same lines. It's one of these long haul practices that I think can transform the life, not over just the next day or week, but over the years and the decades ahead. And so this episode I'm entitling Find a Mentor and Be a Mentor. And the idea for this kind of came as three different things converged over the last week or so. And I realized that this is a core practice that has been a part of my life that we really haven't talked about in any kind of detail on this podcast. And so the first thing that I thought about was in my episode with Elaine, my natural first description of my relationship with her is that my relationship and Wheezy and I's relationship with her and Bob are as mentors. Even though they haven't really formally mentored us, we look up to them in such a way that they have been mentors for us over decades as we've developed a relationship with them, as we've watched them live their lives, that it's been a mentoring relationship. The second thing that happened was just in having a breakfast with a friend just recently and talking about different things that I've done with my life and that he's done, talked about, wow, it would really be good to talk about mentoring even in a podcast episode. And then the final thing that converged and said, yes, this is something I need to talk about now, is just this last week, as I was thinking about this podcast, which I do totally on my own. I record the episodes on my own. I edit the episodes on my own. I've been trying to just figure this out as, in essence, a lone ranger. I realized this is ridiculous. There are so many people who know so much more about podcasting than I do. And so I decided to reach out to a man who has been doing podcasting for a couple of decades, probably, Dave Jackson. And I got on the phone with him and I realized how much he had to offer to me to help improve my whole process, help me develop a team for it, figure out better practices for this. And I realized in just that one conversation that he was functioning in that conversation and hopefully going forward as a mentor to me in the very specific area of podcasting. And all of that converged to say this idea of finding a mentor for areas of your life and being a mentor is one of the most life-giving practices that we can do, of saying that I'm not on my own in areas of life, that I need other people, I can benefit from other people, is so critical to us living our best life. So today's episode is Find a Mentor and Be a Mentor. We're going to talk about both sides of those. So let's dive into this. Let's first describe, what does it mean to be a mentor? What is a mentor? And I've written out a little bit of a definition of this. And this is not just off the top of my head. Mentoring has been kind of core to me almost my whole life. I've mentored all sorts of different people, men in small groups, individually. I led a mentoring ministry at our church that mentored hundreds of people, men and women, and helped set up those kinds of relationships. And as I began to think about that in that mentoring ministry and define it, I defined mentoring as a sharing relationship in which a more experienced person guides a less experienced person. So that can be across any area of life. You can find a mentor in a career and look for someone who has more experience in your area of a career than you have. You can find a marriage mentor, someone who is a little bit further along in their marriage relationship than you might be. You can find, what I tend to do a lot is life mentoring. Just in general, how do we grow in our life? How do we live a better, more fulfilling, purposeful life, a more spacious life? And so we have life mentors, people who just help us, put one foot in front of the other. And then there are spiritual mentors. We use the term sometimes a spiritual director, but they're people who have really invested themselves deeply in living the most rich spiritual life possible and can guide other people in how to do that. So mentoring can cross a lot of different territories. And you may be in a place where you say, well, I'm doing okay, doing fine in my career. I kind of know where I'm going. I have people that I look up to, but I could really use a mentor in the area of my spiritual life. Or I could really use a mentor in the area of helping to develop habits and life practices that would help me move forward. So think about mentoring in a very broad spectrum. Where in your life could you use help from someone who is a little further along than where you might be? And so there are two things that I think of and look for when I'm thinking about looking for a mentor. The first thing I'm looking for is basically just knowledge. Does this person have more experience than I do? Do I look up to that person in the area, either career or marriage or spiritual direction? Who is the person that I look up to, that I want to aspire to, that I'd love to become a decade or two down the road? And not all mentors are older. We can have mentors who are just simply more experienced in the same age, even younger than us. We can have mentors that help us in the area of technology. Our kids can be mentors in that way. And the second thing that I think is really important is that a mentor, I think, needs to have a character that we aspire to. So the best mentors have a kind of a fundamental humility about who they are, a willingness to be honest and a willingness to be vulnerable in who they are. They're not know-it-alls that just want to just kind of shove knowledge down and be holier than thou or more knowledgeable than thou. They're people who kind of have that character that I can immediately learn from and gain knowledge from and aspire to. So I look for people who are further along than where I am in the area that I'm looking to be mentored in. And I'm looking for people who have a character that I resonate with, who I feel like I can come alongside. And that's really one of the core areas that is important in being a mentor and finding a mentor is we're looking for someone to come alongside with us. We're looking for someone not to just impose on us, but to walk with us in both their successes and in their failures, both in their strengths and in their weaknesses. And that come alongside is a powerful phrase. In fact, in the Bible, it uses that phrase to describe the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, a paraclete, is a come alongside person with us. How great that God describes himself as someone to come alongside us. So I think that's really powerful. So how do you go about finding a mentor? How do you go about asking someone to be a mentor? I find that what is most comfortable for me, because I can be a little bit timid or shy, is to ask someone about being a mentor once I've identified someone that could be helpful to me, to ask them by email. That way I can let them know exactly what I'm looking for. I can set some proper boundaries to say I'm not asking for a lifetime. I'd love to just meet with you a few times to learn from you in this particular area. I feel like I can give them room to not kind of be blindsided and create an awkwardness about it, but they can take some time to think whether they have the time or interest to be a mentor. I feel like it's a great way to uh, offer that type of request in an honoring way. And so an email is honestly a great way of asking someone. And then you can always put in there, you know, no rush to respond. I'll reach back to you in a week or two and see what your thoughts are. But I find that most people are so honored to be asked to be mentors that they're happy to be a mentor to you. They're happy to give your time. Even people that you think are so far beyond that you're totally surprised and you feel awkward even asking them. Reach out, be bold in asking people that you aspire to. It's such a compliment to someone to be asked to be a mentor. So, and I always feel like it's helpful to give them an easy out, to say, I totally understand if you're too busy for this at this time, but I just thought I would reach out and just tell you how much I look up to you in terms of this. Who can complain with that? So let's say you've reached out to someone and you said, can we get coffee or can we get breakfast or lunch to just talk a little bit and to explore this a little bit further? What do you do in that first time you get together? My suggestion is that you don't just wing it when you get together with a mentor. Respect their time, respect their expertise by having a little bit of a plan of what you want to ask about. Come with some specific questions, whether it's questions about their marriage, if you're looking for marriage mentoring, whether it's questions about how do they orient their time, if it's just general life mentoring, if it's career, how did you advance in your career? What do you think are some of the most important things that have contributed to your success? Have some very specific questions that you have to enter into that session with. The second thing that I would say is that commit yourself to listening. So it's so easy because of the awkwardness sometimes of getting together with someone that you look up to that you can talk too much. So if you're really looking to be mentored by someone, then be willing to listen. And on the other side of that equation, uh, be comfortable with not trying to impress the mentor and how far along you are or how sharp you are in this area. Uh, be willing to just simply be humble and sit back and listen and ask questions. That's how you're going to get the most out of a mentoring relationship. And really, at the core, that's what mentoring is. It's just a relationship. Whether it's a single time that you ask someone for help in a particular area, or you're asking them, would you be willing to get together for 3 or 4 times to just for me to pick your brains in this area, or for a more significant relationship? Whatever it is, it's just a relationship that you have with them. Mentoring is not this really formal, defined process. It's just a relationship with another person that you're looking to grow from, or you're looking to be able to offer some help to. So once we get to that, that also helps frame the other side of this episode, because it's not all just about finding a mentor. I think some of the greatest growth that we can have in life is from entering into being a mentor in someone's life. So it was really interesting over the several years that I helped with the mentoring ministry at our church. And in those, we set up mentors to have about a 9-month relationship with 2 different mentees. And we went through, various areas that we talked about over those 9 months and that we helped guide the mentors and mentees. And what was really interesting is that at the end of that 9 months, while we heard such tremendous feedback from people about the value of those relationships, I heard more from the mentors about how they grew and how they benefited from being a mentor than I did actually from the mentees. The mentors and stepping into that and trying to come alongside people and talk about both their successes and their failures and entering into those relationships, they grew more from being a mentor than I even heard from the mentees. And so I think one of the most powerful ways that we grow is by willing to be a mentor. Just like I experienced that one of the greatest ways that I learn about something is by taking on the task of teaching about something. So how do you end up being a mentor? It seems rather presumptuous to say, hey, I thought I would reach out to you and just see if you need a mentor in this area. That kind of feels a little presumptuous. And so, what I find is that we build a practice of just speaking in to people's lives that are younger than us, whatever that might be. That if you just commit to saying, I want relationships from people who are younger from me, I know I will benefit from that. I know I will learn from that. I'd love to just get to know you. Then those are the ways that natural mentoring relationships develop. You just decide, someone that is a little bit younger, maybe in your career, maybe in your church, maybe another couple that's just a little bit younger, and say, hey, would you like to go out and get some breakfast together? Love to just get to know you and hear what you're about. You don't have to necessarily be getting together to impart some special wisdom or knowledge. You're just getting together to come alongside, to develop a genuine relationship with them. And that as you do that, whether you're really intending to mentor them or not, whether it's ever talked about as you're mentoring them or not, those are the relationships in which people grow. And that's really all that mentoring is about. And so I'm convinced that mentoring should be a lifestyle. It's not something we do. We should be in mentoring relationships with people. We should have mentors across all different spheres of our life. And that as we have those types of relationships, that's where we're going to find some of the most profound growth happening in our lives. And so I want to encourage you specifically to take action on this, to think about, where is it that I need to grow in my life? Is it in my marriage? Is it in my personal life and habits? Is it in some specific area that I'm wanting to grow? Is it in my health? Where is it that you need to grow? And my challenge to you is this week to reach out to someone, to ask for their help. Forget about mentoring. Just ask for someone's help. I'd love to get together with you for coffee or for lunch and just learn a little bit more in this particular area. Whoever you ask that of will be so complimented by your request. I think you will be so pleased with what will come out of that simple, bold act of asking for someone for help. And then the second piece of that is reach out to someone younger than yourself just to begin a relationship or to continue a relationship. Don't worry about whether it becomes a mentoring relationship or not. Just reach out to someone that you might come alongside with. That is really what the core of mentoring is. If we both ask for help, seek out people that can help us grow, and reach out to people that we can come alongside with, and we build a practice and a habit of that, and that continues over a decade or 2 decades, I think we will find this is one of the core practices that will help us grow into the people we want to become and help us develop the lives we want to create. So I hope this episode of Find a Mentor, Be a Mentor, it will add to all of these other episodes that we've had that will help us live the long game the way we would want to live. So thanks so much for listening to this. And one final thing I would like to ask again is, If you think this is worth listening to, that you would share this. In fact, this could be a great way for you to ask about being mentored. Hey, I heard this great podcast on finding a mentor and be a mentor. And I listened to this and it helped me think about you as someone who could help me. So even sharing this episode might be an easy way to reach out to someone else about being a mentor in your life. So thanks so much for listening. Share it with others. And I enjoy doing this and enjoy having you as part of my podcast. Thanks, everyone.